Morning Uganda Extra.
Good morning. In case you have just joined us, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra, an extension of Good Morning Uganda. But we're always here every weekday from 6:30. The mighty four and the big team behind the cameras and the technical wing, just to kickstart your day with vibe and relevant information that you need as you go about business throughout the day. I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono. Now this morning we are going to be discussing another pertinent issue, very important issues that have dominated most of the times when you look at our police annual crime report. When you talk about sexual, gender-based violence. Maybe you're out there and you're a victim. Maybe you know a victim. Maybe you've tried and you've not had a breakthrough. Now we want to look at or analyze good practices in disposal of sexual, gender-based violence cases in Uganda. And I have a panel of very competent persons to discuss this. Right at my extreme hand, I have His Worship, who also happens to be a Registrar of Magistrates Affairs and Data Management, but also the PRO to the Judiciary, His Worship James Elemye Mawanda. You're most welcome.
Thank you. Most welcome.
And just next to him, I have the Acting Director Forensic Services, Uganda Police Force, Andrew Mubiru Kizimula. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much for hosting us here this morning.
It's
and
a
good
pleasure.
morning, our viewers.
And last but not least, gender balance has also been factored in here. Just next to me is, that is Madam Wakoli Samali, who happens to be the Assistant Director, Office of Public Prosecutions, and Head of Department Gender, Children and Sexual Offences in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. You're most welcome.
Thank you, sir, and good morning to you all our listeners. We are happy to be here at UBC.
Well, now with that panel, I'm very sure that I have the right people to discuss this. Now, I want to begin from my extreme end, Your Worship. When you talk about sexual, gender-based violence, what is this? What nature of cases are we going to be discussing?
Thank you very much. Our viewers, good morning. And we are here to unpack what SGBV, in short, sexual gender-based violence, is all about. And what cases are we talking about when we refer to sexual gender-based violence cases? You might probably already know that the name sexual gender-based violence will relate to cases of a sexual nature. These are cases that include cases like defilement, rape, and then we have cases of a domestic nature. Oftentimes we have a misconception where many times people think cases that happen in homes, okay, are family issues, and whereas they have a criminal element in them, and so the interest of the state. So all matters, crimes committed in a domestic setting, domestic cases. And when we talk about gender-based violence, we are talking about the violence that occurs in a domestic setting, violence that has a gender perspective, violence that impacts on our people, but having gender overtones, which, if not addressed, will definitely impact on the rights of the people, their livelihoods, including peace and security.
And a quick one also.
Yes.
Now we know that there is a campaign. Currently, please give us a background of the special sessions project that the Justice, Law and Order sector has been coordinating, of course, with support from UNFPA.
Yes. Thank you very much. The judiciary, with the support of the now what we call the governance and security program, in partnership with the UNFPA, have been since 2018 supporting SGBV cases, and this is informed by several obligations that are under the Constitution of Uganda. But to start with, there was, Uganda is a party to many protocols on women's rights, one of them being the African Charter on the Rights of Women, the Maputo Protocol, and also we had other interventions which came in as early as 2006. We had the International Conference on the Great Lakes, which led to the Kampala Declaration on Gender-Based Violence. Now, the judiciary, in partnership with the GELOS, that is now the security governance and security program, which includes all other former GELOS institutions, are working together to ensure that SGBV cases are fast-tracked. And in so doing, we have been able to develop best practices, which best practices are what we are interested in to ensure that we continue using them, we continue applying them, we even perfect them better, such that when we are handling these issues, we are applying a human face to the issues involving the victims, to the issues involving the accused persons, including even the communities. That is the approach on SGBV. And so we are very grateful to the government of Uganda for the support. We are also very grateful to UNFPA because they have been very, very central. Because since 2018, we have had a series up to 2023, and we hope to have even more.
Now that brings me to Sanali. His worship talked about good practices. Now, during the implementation of this project, what good practices, as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, your office has been able to identify?
Thank you. And before I go to good practices, I wish to bring to the attention of our viewers that when we talk about the category of offenses that His Worship broke down, of defilement, of rape, of murder, these are offenses that may occur to somebody, but they are a human rights abuse. We need to appreciate that when another person kills another in a home, they have deprived that person of their right to life. Also, if a young child has been defiled, you are not only abusing their privacy, but also it is a cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment to such a child. So because of the fact that many of the offenses that fall in this category being a human rights issue, we thought that it was critical that we should have a focus on human rights. Secondly, it is the perpetrators. Research has found out that most of the perpetrators of the offenses of this category are very well known to their victims. So you'll find that it is the husband abusing the wife. And yesterday we were at an activity where one of the bishops told us that in life and in creation as God created us, animals, trees, and human beings, it's only a human being that turns their fingers to their fellow human beings. We animals live peacefully. So because the perpetrators are known to the victims, it presents a challenge on follow-up, reporting, and investigation, because there is likely to be interferences. And then also, these offenses also come with a lot of stigma and shame. In the community, people will say, that is so-and-so's daughter who was defiled. So because they come with a lot of shame, we also needed to come out, therefore, with ways of how we can, one, fast track these cases and ensure that they are heard and concluded on time, to ensure that victims receive justice. And then also we also had to come out with innovative ways where we can ensure that children, women, and men participate in the justice system without feeling shame and being traumatized about what happened. So in that way, we realized that in court, they will require witnesses. So we need to handle these witnesses with care, because if I don't have a witness, then I'll not present the evidence in court. So we want to handle witnesses with care right away from police, how they are received by the police officers, how they are interviewed in a victim and a trauma-informed way. And you don't blame them for what happened. There are several questions that somebody would ask, but where were you and where were you going at such a time? We want to avoid such questions, such that somebody is able to tell you their story and you record down what they informed you, and that forms evidence, and that is what we will present to court. The other good practice that we have thought of and focused on is, you see, the persons who have disabilities become double vulnerable to such kind of abuse. Children who are deaf or persons who have any form of disability, they become more vulnerable than any other person. And also children, by virtue of their age, they are also very vulnerable to all forms of abuse. So when they come to our offices, we also have means of how we can communicate. For those who are unable to speak, we usually call interpreters to do for us the sign languages. But also our communities and the way we live is that if a child is born with a hearing or a talking disability, most of our parents don't take them to school, and but at home they be communicating with their people. So in that way, we would want somebody at home who has known how this child communicates with them, then they can offer the interpretation services for us, and we are able to understand what this child is communicating. It is also important that we have safe spaces where we do our interviews. So as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and with support from Governance and Security, which was formerly JELOS, we have been able to set up child-friendly rooms in over 13 centers where our high courts are, and these act as holding spaces where we can keep our witnesses instead of them going to sit in open courts where people will be pointing fingers, such that a child only goes to court only when they need their evidence to be taken on. So we have comfortable waiting spaces where we conduct interviews and where we prepare our witnesses before we go to court. We also have, because our communities have taught us that talking about sex and sexuality is bad manners. Yes. So when we receive children in court, we also don't want them to leave courts when they are experts in sexuality and other related issues. So we have illustration tools. And besides that, you see, when you're talking about your body, it's easier for you to refer to body parts when you're pointing at another person, but not when you're pointing to yourself. When you're pointing to yourself, it brings in a lot of stigma and shame. So we have illustration dolls that we procured as the Office of DPP that we use to help the children explain exactly how this sexual offense took place, how it happened, and it makes easier life for children because children speak different languages. So play and illustration is one of the key weapons that we could use, such that we can be able to relay appropriate evidence to court. We have also adopted what we call multi-sectoral planning and trainings. You see, as Office of DPP, if you talk about a conveyor belt, for us we hold the middle position. The police do the investigations, the court receives the evidence, but the one who manages the evidence by our mandate under Article 120, We direct police to do investigations. We also handle the prosecutions themselves, and we therefore present this evidence in court. So because we hold a critical role in the middle of the whole system, we have to ensure that in our trainings and giving skills, we have to give skills to all. So we've been engaged in training our police officers, our investigators, to get us good quality evidence. And then we have been able also to train our prosecutors to present this evidence in a friendly manner, and also to handle children in a friendly manner. We have also been engaged in training also judicial officers, such that when they receive this evidence, they also receive it with a positive attitude, and they have to know that these offenses vary. You see, for an offense of rape, that victim lives with that pain for the entire of their lives. If it's a child defiled at an early age of 4 years, they will live with that pain for the rest of their years. So we want all of us in the justice chain to be alive of the trauma, to be alive of the pain that the victims go through. We may not necessarily fit in their shoes, but we would want to feel the pain with them, and would want them to know that there is somebody who cares. And the person who cares is us, and we are ready to handle the cases in a friendly way to ensure that they receive the justice that they need.
Well, sincerely, this project has been very beneficial, more so when we see, excuse me, new methods of making the victims be able to give the evidence. I like the approach of the doors, that isolated room. In my career, I remember one time I went to a certain court, I won't mention where, and I felt this young girl was just being tortured. To some level, I was like, why did they even bring this case to court? Where were you? Did you enjoy? Which part? How did you know?
Actually, we came with the pictures they could show to the public to know.
And personally, I was like, when did this child come to court? Of course, the offender was a big person, and it had issues. But when I just wished now, if this child was only coming to present evidence, this is an open court, we are there, cameras sometimes, but then I think these are very good initiatives. Now it takes me to police. First, when you talk about gender, sexual-based violence, how big is this problem actually to our country?
Thank you very much. Good morning again, our viewers. Indeed, the matters of sexual and gender-based violence are quite a substantial matter to deal with. We have been registering an increase in the number of sex-related offenses, but that is in contrast to domestic violence. Domestic violence actually is coming down because domestic violence has a host of matters surrounding it. But specifically on sex-related matters, there is a slight increase, and also a slight increase with regard to children. And that's the worrisome bit. But from the annual crime report of last year, scaling at about 17,000 cases, upwards of that, the domestic violence did not increase per se, but sex-related offenses were on the rise, which are in the category of sexual and gender-based violence. Specifically in the issues of crimes against children, we are also registering a slight increment there. Now, recently, our leadership, when we were walking around Kampala, the DIG was very clear to caution men and families to take care of their children, especially during this festive period. Because we are moving into a very dangerous time where children are now in the holidays, and this is when these crimes spike up. But from the police perspective, our task is to make sure that we bring those who are culpable to book. So it is very important that viewers understand where our key challenges are as we talk about these issues of sexual and gender-based violence. We are not there when these incidences happen, but somebody must report the offense. Now, when you do report the offense to the police, we have got a reception where we do receive most of the cases. Now, what we have done together with our partners, as somebody was pointing out, and earlier His Worship was talking about, we have to create these safe spaces to avoid re-traumatization. In Chibuli, we have a safe space where we have a sexual and gender-based desk, but that is only in Kampala. So what we're trying to do now is to increase these safe spaces in all the policing stations. The other day, we were looking at Nagalama also and so many other stations where we can put these safe spaces. As somebody was pointing out, when you report a matter of this nature, usually because it is somebody you know, most of the people take time to report these cases. It takes some bit of time, and by the time they report, either the evidential material has been moved or the verbatim around it has slightly changed due to family pressure. So what we are guiding is that the matters must be reported as soon as the offense has been realized. Immediately. There should be no fear. We even have toll-free lines where these, some of these offenses can be reported. But we also have station lines. So it's important that you walk to the station, you get there, and you get a detective who is assigned to this case. We understand the challenges that are there when you are narrating these matters. As you have just pointed out earlier, re-traumatization of the victim is a very big concern for us, and we are trying to make sure that we adhere to a victim-centered approach and trauma-sensitive in that area. So these are some of the best practices we are trying to bring about. Now, how are we doing this? We are also having to train together. We are not only saying that let's train forensics or maybe CID alone and maybe DPP alone. We are doing joint training. So through the support of the UNFPA, we have done joint trainings. So these joint trainings enable that everybody who is in the chain of justice understands their role, their pivotal role. So these trainings, we have been doing them consistently, and we are looking to do more of these trainings. Perhaps the other issue that we have been discussing is that whilst we are doing these trainings, we are also going to increase our public awareness, and that's why we are here, to show the public what is their role. Your role is to make sure that you safeguard the scene of crime, which is unfortunately the victim. And that's the most unfortunate bit. That unlike a classical crime scene or unlike a classical case where an incident has occurred in one area and people move away, the incident occurred exactly where the victim is, and the victim carries the scene with them for the rest of their lives. And this perhaps is the other challenge now, that we have to protect the victim, protect their emotions, and protect the evidence they are in, which means taking them to the doctor, bringing them back, talking to them in a child-friendly way or in a safe space. You can talk about the children only, but also imagine a woman has been violated in her own house. She will run to the police station probably in the middle of the night. Now, when you arrive at the police station, you're likely not to go back at your home. So you need to be given a safe space. So this is what we're working on, so that you can be given a safe space to spend the night, be able to narrate your story, and then we are able to go back to get other evidential material. But once that evidence has been preserved, protected, using all the means that we have, the technical means, we also have to move on to make sure that all this is concluded, transmitted to our back-end processes, supervision-wise for the CID and also technical-wise for the forensics, to make sure that we do the forensic analysis. And once the reports are done, we have to report back to the case file, and then the file is submitted to the DPP. Now comes the other challenge, witnesses. So if you're a witness and you have been, and you're involved in a case, usually the police will approach and say, your matter is coming up to court. Please make your appearance. The other challenge now we have is that after some time, that's why we're talking about fast-tracking these cases, these special sessions, to avoid that lag in time. Because after some time, maybe the neighbor moves away, or maybe somebody who is key witness in the case maybe changes location. Some of them don't want to come to court. So we, the police, have to look for these people wherever they are to make sure that they appear in court as well. So that is also one of the other challenges that we usually see coming in. But in terms of all these cases we are dealing with, the police is advocating that everybody who is minding about somebody else or is in a domestic setting should be careful not to be part and parcel of violating somebody else's rights.
Now, a quick one for you. Away from communities where this happen, this entire journey starts with police.
Yes.
I'm a local leader in my area, and one time I had an uncle rape a daughter, no, the sister's daughter. Now the girl was around 10 years, and when I heard of this, and they had kept quiet. I said, well, let's take the girl to police, and we begin the system. Now, first reception happens to be a problem. Then the fee for examination is another thing that comes in. But also the science involved. Good, you're from the forensic department. You know, keeping, preserving evidence. Now I want you to look before the camera and give someone watching us, in case such a case happens, what is crucial in preserving evidence? How should we go through about it? Because, for example, if it's defilement and we don't have the evidence, what are we going through with? We shall still say the rich man paid off, the judiciary, the registrar, the DPP. So what is this? Because this is the most crucial thing here. These things will happen, we can reduce them. But how best do we bring to book? One time I had a Mr. Mexit and said that almost 75% of these criminals go scot-free due to lack of evidence and mishandling of this evidence.
Yes, I think that is rightly put. There is a challenge there in evidence management. And I would like to fling back to what somebody pointed out. It's because these crimes are crimes which are associated with the persons that you know. I would like to even make them akin to passionate crimes. People are quick to try and remove the evidence to avoid the shame, maybe due to not understanding what the implication is, because a girl has been raped and immediately say, go and bathe. Now that's not the right way. The issue is, let's inform the police quickly, let's recover the undergarments, let's recover any other sexual item which has been used. It could be a sexual tool which was used, or maybe something else. That person who has been violated must be presented before a medical practitioner for examination. There is a police form that must be filled, police form 3, and that forms part of the evidence, because details what exactly the victim was subjected to and where is the key points of evidence. I will not go into the details because some of these things we have to detail them in a better fora. But for example, you have to take swabs from private areas, you have to take private underwear or something else. But also the person has to be interviewed. Now, the issue here we're trying to solve, between the police and our colleagues within the DPP, is to make sure that once somebody is presented, we have what we call a one-stop center. Now, this is something that we're trying to make sure that we develop. It's not yet fully there, but we're trying to try it out here and there. Why are we saying a one-stop center? That where you are examined from is exactly where your immediate interview is done. So that you are interviewed once, processed once, evidence is captured once, and all that now goes to court once, to avoid that re-traumatization. There is also, we are mooting a possibility that interview that you give us at the beginning, if it is done properly with the guidance of the DPP, it should be able to stand the rigors of court without having to take you back into evidence in chief, and then maybe we just allow for a slight cross-examination and maybe a disguise or something of that nature. But the evidential material that you're pointing out that we must protect is usually on the body of the person, or some items which are left behind.
So to simply put it,
yes.
Once this girl has been defiled, no bathing.
You shouldn't bathe.
Don't tamper with the garments.
Don't tamper with anything. However, if inadvertently somebody has bathed or something has happened, that shouldn't stop you from still approaching the police. Because the evidence is more resilient than most people may imagine. We are not advocating that you should go and bathe. We are saying, no, please do not. But if inadvertently something has happened that you did not wish for, still do proceed with the process to present the person before the police for proper processing and interview.
Now I'll come to His Worship, but there's an interesting part of it. And this goes to both of you. We have cases, for example, political cases. They take precedent, and they have a time lag, which they have to be completed. Electoral petitions. Now, His Worship, with these funny statistics, not good at all, with the pain, trauma that lives on with people till their lifetime, we've seen these cases delaying, and maybe sometimes not given priority. How should we go about this?
Thank you very much. Before I get to that point, I was intrigued with your experience in the court somewhere. And I want to think that there are so many other people who must have gone through the same experience, and they have had those reservations about how victims are treated in the courts, how courts handle the business involving SGBV cases and all that. I told you earlier in my introductory remarks that over the years, as we have been going through these sessions, best practices have been developed. And specifically about victims of crime, we have developed a gender-sensitive and age-appropriate language over the years. And our judicial officers today are very sensitive to those concerns. And I want to assure you that it will be very rare of the cases that you will now find victims being subjected to that kind of handling. Age is very important in sexual violence. That's why you have seen somebody coming up with dolls to explain certain occurrences at a point T. And that is trying to do as much to bring the victim to tell the events appropriately without causing trauma, without stigmatizing, without all of that kind of thing. Then, of course, even the procedures. Before, the adversarial system had taken a great toll on our practice. But with these experiences and best practices, we no longer apply the adversarial system in SGBV cases. The procedures are very friendly. That's why you will find the safe spaces, which talked about. We have now a requirement that most of those cases should even be handled in camera. In camera means that you put out a certain category of people out of the trial so that they are not present when the child is making, giving the evidence, including even witness protection. We also have now rooms where a victim can be without being in the open. So that the accused person is even looking at them, intimidating them with all sorts of glares and that kind of thing. We have that. We have also come up with audio-visual links, okay? And where we don't have that technology, we are also advocating that Zoom can be used in such meetings. All of that is to safeguard, first of all, the integrity of the victim, also to reduce the trauma that can be there, including the harassment that comes with it. So we are really moving forward, and we every other day document this kind of practices to ensure that the justice should be delivered appropriately. And so, coming to your point,
in the interest of time.
In the interest of time,
yes.
Having the point that we have political cases, we take precedence, etc. As a judiciary and the rest of the jailhouse institutions, we have come up with a session program, because sessions are focused and they have time frames within which cases are handled. And of course, political cases like election petitions, they come once in several years. But by and large, when they do come, yes, that's the law. They will take precedence because of the political issues involved. You know that. But now our focus in the courts is to ensure that these cases, judicial officers take them priority because of so many other factors. In our principles of case management, we are looking at issues to do with the matters concerning women, and most of these SGBV cases affect mostly women and children, the elderly, the sick, and so on. Of course, even the men suffer domestic violence, they suffer sexual offenses, but by and large, our approach is that these cases should be expedited, because the delay alone is an injustice. And we have serious interventions in case management, serious interventions on case backlog reduction, and the continuous training and sensitization of our officers has helped a lot. And so we are very grateful for the support that is coming in from UNFPA and the governance and security program and all our stakeholders. We really want to ensure that these cases are not delayed.
Well answered, and hope we can have a number of these sessions, because if someone was deferred at the age of 9, if a case is to be heard when now there may be even 18 to conclude it, they may lose. They are getting more closer to the opposite sex, getting marriages closer, and this is how we find that some, even us, if I'm to be a witness, after 5 years, for heaven's sake, where would I have the interest? You know, maybe even I'm in other places I don't feel comfortable coming to court. But with these initiatives, I want to thank this project that really we've been able to identify. Now, time seems to be flying. But I cannot let you go summary without looking at lessons and areas of improvement that you've identified throughout the implementation of this project. Briefly, please.
Briefly. As I go to the lessons and the areas of improvement, I wanted us to focus on certain aspects. Mr. Mubiru talked about the statistics of sex-related offenses. I wanted to break it down clearly for the listeners such that we can understand this problem. From the report that he mentioned, we had a total of 12,708 victims. And out of the number that I have mentioned, 12,440 are girls. And out of these, we had 310 who are boys. So we are looking at cases against children which are numbering higher. But through this we have also learned, apart from the good practices that we have talked about, one is as prosecutors we need to be involved in investigations early. And as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, we launched our prosecutor guided guidelines. And we want to guide our detectives, because at the end of the day, it's me who knows what evidence is required in court. So we want to work with detectives to ensure that we gather good quality evidence that we are going to be sure of, not this one of just gambling, such that our cases are not, you know, a case is won at investigation, not in court.
Well, my apologies, I have to cut you short. I've been informed that there's a live coverage that has to come in, but I'm just going to give each one of you a minute to have your concluding remarks. Please, let's use a minute. Okay. And I'll begin with you.
We are doing now the last phase of sessions. We are doing sessions in Mukono, we are doing in Kamwenge, and we are also doing in Gulu. As we close, I would like to call upon all members of the public in those 3 court areas to come to the courts. Your cases are going to be heard. When police come or when we give you a call, come and give us evidence such that we are able to conclude these cases very well.
Mubiru?
Thank you very much. What somebody has pointed out, we request that for all those who gave their statements on file, please make sure you attend court. But for anybody who receives a case henceforth, or maybe witnesses a crime of this nature, please preserve the evidence, preserve the victim, report early. Make sure you are available to make sure that you give your statement of the account of events. Make sure you avoid re-traumatizing the victims and any other person around there. From the end of the police, the bottlenecks that are existing, we are fixing them step by step. We have our partners with us. We are doing more training. We are now even infusing technology into some of these things we are doing, including case management to improve so that we can catch up with what court is doing, so that information travels quicker, DPP can supervise better, courts can see better, evidence can move quicker, and then you can conclude this.
Well, Your Worship, please, in less than a minute.
Thank you very much once again, and I want to associate myself with the remarks made by my colleagues. I want to assure the general public, our viewers, that the judiciary is doing all that is within its means to ensure that we improve on case management and focus on properly planning cases, including SGBV cases. We want to improve how we manage and handle our witnesses, especially the expert witnesses in these matters, because they are very critical. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I bring you warm greetings from the judiciary, and we say, Luta continua.
Well, I want to thank you so much. My guests been very fruitful, and of course our viewers. Together we can end sexual gender-based violence. Please, please, witnesses are very critical and crucial here. Let's not shun from witnessing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, our viewers. See you tomorrow, same time, for God and my country.